Hi, and welcome back to Bible Break. We're finishing in Genesis again for the moment, but as you will see as we go through Genesis 22, it's a really good start to our sort of Easter season, and a good way to finish Genesis, good way to start the countdown to Easter before we go back, perhaps in 2 or 3 weeks' time, I don't know, to back to Mark's Gospel. But we're going to a very deep and very dark place today in our reading. So I'm reading from the NIV as usual. Genesis chapter 22, we'll read the whole chapter. Here we go. Abram tested is the succinct summary of subheading in my NIV. Genesis 22. Sometime later, God tested Abram. He said to him, Abram, here I am, he replied. Then God said, take your son, your only son Isaac, which of course he wasn't, but to all intents and purposes he now was. Ishmael is gone, and Isaac is, all eyes have been on him for the past however long they've had him. Take your son, your only son Isaac, whom you love, and go to the region of Moriah. Sacrifice him there as a burnt offering on one of the mountains I will tell you about. Early the next morning, Abram got up and saddled his donkey. He took with him 2 of his servants and his son Isaac. When he had cut enough wood for the burnt offering, he set out for the place God had told him about. On the third day, Abram looked up and saw the place in the distance. He said to his servants, stay here with the donkey while I and the boy go over there. We will worship, and then we will come back to you. Abram took the wood for the burnt offering and placed it on his son Isaac, and he himself carried the fire and the knife. As the 2 of them went on together, Isaac spoke up and said to his father Abram, Father? Yes, my son, Abram replied. The fire and wood are here, Isaac said, but where is the lamb for the burnt offering? Can you carry on? I'll tell you in a minute, this story didn't bother me that much when I was younger. But there we are. Abram answered, God himself will provide the lamb for the burnt offering, my son. And the 2 of them went on together. When they reached the place God had told him about, Abram built an altar there and arranged the wood on it. He bound his son Isaac and laid him on the altar, on top of the wood. Then he reached out his hand and took the knife to slay his son. But the angel of the Lord called out to him from heaven, Abram, Abram, here I am. He replied, do not lay a hand on the boy, he said. Do not do anything to him. Now I know that you fear God, because you have not withheld from me your son, your only son. Abram looked up, and there in a thicket he saw a ram caught by its horns. He went over and took the ram and sacrificed it as a burnt offering instead of his son. So Abram called that place, the Lord will provide. And to this day it is said, on the mountain of the Lord it will be provided. The angel of the Lord called to Abram from heaven a second time and said, I swear by myself, declares the Lord, that because you have done this and have not withheld your son, your only son, I will surely bless you and make your descendants as numerous as the stars in the sky and as the sand on the seashore. Your descendants will take possession of the cities of their enemies, and through your offspring all nations on earth will be blessed, because you have obeyed me. Then Abram returned to his servants, and they set off together for Beersheba, and Abram stayed in Beersheba. Sometime later, Abram was told, Milcah is also a mother. She has borne sons to your brother Nahor. As the firstborn, Buz, his brother, Kemuel, the father of Aram, Kezer, Hazo, Pildash, Jidlaph, and Bethuel. Bethuel became the father of Rebekah, which is to note, because when we come back to Genesis in a few weeks' time, we will see that Abram's son Isaac marries his cousin, effectively his cousin Rebekah. It was with Nahor, his concubine, his name was Reumah, also had sons, Tiba, Gamatash, and Makkah. Right, let's set the scene first. Let's contextualize this in terms of the big picture, the biggest picture, which is that Christ is in all the scriptures, in both the Old and the New Testament. And we'll come back to this, but just to say straight off that we will probably not be able to accept, let alone or digest, let alone understand what's happening here, unless we see this as quite possibly, for all the sacrifices of Cain or Noah or whoever, this is probably the greatest, apart from Isaiah chapter 53. This is the greatest prophecy of what was to come at Easter, at the hour of the cross. And here it is, right at the start of the Bible, in the book of Genesis. And God makes a great patriarch and prophet out of his servant Abraham. And then God tests Abraham for sure. We're going to look at that. But God uses Abraham to speak right at the very beginning, right at the outset of the Jewish people. God uses Abraham to speak of what he will accomplish through them in and through the death of his only son, the unique Lord Jesus Christ. And so we've got to bear that in mind before we can even begin to stomach, as I say, let alone grapple with what we've got here. Like I say, I'm going to take my time with this, and we'll do 2 or 3 Bible breaks on this very chapter, because it is such a pivotal, such an important chapter in the Bible. Oh yeah, what I was going to say to you was that I remember hearing this story in primary school. The teacher just told us the story, and I remember just thinking to myself in my own naive, innocent, happy-go-lucky sort of way at the time, oh, what a story. God, that's fantastic, that. What a beautiful story. Boy, how much that man must have loved God. That was all I thought at the time. that was all that really hit me, that really struck me. I wasn't a Christian yet, but I was impressed by the great love that this man had for God, and I wasn't particularly troubled by the story. Well, of course, now I am greatly troubled by it, and I think I should be, and I think we all should be greatly troubled by it. And I think we should be even more troubled, actually, by the cross. But again, we prefer not to let it trouble us. So, basically, how could anybody even begin to think about sacrificing their only son? Well, there are two things that I want to say at the outset. And the first is of the utmost importance, and it's said to us at the very start. Sometime later, God tested Abram. So we've got to get that straight from the outset. The other thing that we've got to get straight, of course, is that when it says sometime later, well, we had all the build-up to the impossible birth of Isaac, the son who had been so longed for, the promised son, and now so greatly loved and cherished. This gift from God, clearly, there was nothing, as we've seen, to suggest that it was even possible that Sarah could bear Abram this son, this promised son Isaac. But it happened. God gave them Isaac. And wouldn't surprise me if they, as so many parents do with their children, of course, if they idolized him. So now the test comes. I gave him to you. You didn't believe I could. You didn't believe I would. You didn't believe it would happen. And I fulfilled my promise and my word to you. But now I'm also saying, it's me who's saying to you, I'm saying to you, I want him back. Now, I taught you, or at least I should have taught you, what it means to trust me for what I promise to give you. Can you trust me for what I'm asking back and for what I'm wanting to take back? This is why I say we're going into a very, very deep and a very, very dark place. The point about Isaac, of course, is that Isaac wasn't just any son. Isaac was the impossible dream come true. Isaac was clearly the gift from God. And the test now is whether Abram loves the gift more than he loves the giver. Whether Abram is going to idolize what God has given him, or whether he is going to worship and continue to worship as he's grown into this relationship with God. Like I say, we're not rushing this. This is big stuff. This is there is nothing bigger. Okay, so we've already almost had our 15 minutes. So I'll leave you with that, having just set the scene, and we'll go on to see what actually happens here, and what it all means, and what it all points to, and what it all points to for us, in terms of us, and what is to be our faith in God and our relationship with God. So I'll see you next time.